The topic of the Egyptian pyramids has been repeatedly raised on the internet. We also talked about the fact that these grandiose constructions still conceal a lot of mysteries, and the mummy of Pharaoh Cheops was not found, perhaps hiding somewhere in the bowels of his tomb. However, we have never addressed the question of how the ancient Egyptians managed to build such majestic structures and what tools they used for this. It is time to fill this gap. Historians, Egyptologists, as a rule, argue about the purpose of the pyramids, their age and duration of construction. Undoubtedly, all these questions are of great importance, but for some reason, scientists carefully bypass the main mystery: how people of those times managed to process stone blocks so smoothly and to lift them to the tops of pyramids. The answer to this question, according to some historians and surprisingly, builders, is quite simple and has always been on the surface. Ancient Egyptians used copper saws with diamond teeth to create perfectly straight cuts. There are several strong arguments in favor of this theory. First of all, at the time of building the pyramids, people already knew that diamonds are the hardest crystals on Earth. Besides, diamonds were abundant in the Nile River basin, and their mining was already carried out on a large scale. Egyptologists are sure that in ancient Egypt, diamonds were valued not as precious stones, but as a super strong material. According to historians, only after the construction of the first pyramid, the Pyramid of Djoser and Saqqara, did the diamond acquire the status of a jewel. However, many Egyptologists are skeptical of such statements and believe that some other tool was used to cut the blocks. But they cannot give an answer to the quite natural question about what kind of tool. It is known that Egyptians already in those times mastered metallurgy and even created bronze alloys. But saws made of bronze, or especially of copper, could hardly cope with a stone block. Some historians put forward a hypothesis according to which the blocks were cut with copper saws, but a mixture of sand and water was added to the cut, which increased the efficiency of the tool. There was also an assumption that the cut was made not to the end, and wooden wedges were inserted into the cut, which were then abundantly poured with water. The wood would swell and simply break the block in half. However, this theory did not find wide support in scientific circles and was questioned. The blocks were too smooth. Recently, Russian scientist Dmitry Pavlov organized an expedition, the main purpose of which was to establish what tools were used by the ancient Egyptians in the construction of the pyramids. During several weeks, Pavlov's team thoroughly investigated these grandiose structures and came to the conclusion that for their construction were used very sophisticated for those times tools. Narrow long saws, drills, and even a kind of prototype of a modern milling machine. Obviously, bronze is not suitable for such purposes, which means that the Egyptians used either a special alloy or diamonds. However, the Pavlov expedition eventually succumbed to the influence of conspiracy theories and came to fantastic conclusions, according to which the ancient architects allegedly possessed almost laser or plasma cutters, and help in this they were provided by aliens, for whom the pyramids served as a spaceport or base. But we will leave aside this slippery path and turn to historical facts. How to make such copper diamond saw? The answer to this question is easily given by those who work with stone nowadays. Copper is melted and poured into a mold, adding diamond chips. Then the resulting saw is hewn, and as the copper is erased, the diamond teeth are exposed, which can already be used to saw stone. Surprisingly, some experts in the study of ancient Egypt are trying to prove that it was the discovery of diamond properties that moved the Egyptians to build the pyramids. According to scientists, when the magic properties of this stone were revealed, the pharaohs decided to pay tribute to it. By the way, this can explain the very shape of the pyramid. After all, the carbon crystal, of which diamond consists, has the form of a tetrahedral pyramid. There is also a hypothesis according to which ancient Egyptian scientists, having discovered the properties of the diamond, believed that its shape and these properties themselves represent immortality. Opponents of the diamond saw theory usually ask the same question: how many diamonds would have been needed to cut hundreds of thousands of blocks? Proponents of this theory immediately replied that in Central Africa, diamonds were mined in huge quantities and then transported to Egypt, where they were used in construction. A legitimate question arises. If diamonds were in such abundance, where did they all go later? They could not have been distributed to the workers as payment for labor. The only logical explanation is that the pyramids were built several millennia ago, and during this huge period of time, all the precious stones were simply plundered. We cannot fail to mention the reign of the Egyptian Queen Cleopatra and the Roman commander Julius Caesar. At that time, diamonds had already acquired the status of precious stones. According to Egyptologists, it was diamonds that played a key role in turning ancient Egypt into the most powerful civilization of its time. Precious stones were used to pay for the construction of temples and other grandiose structures, and also served as a means of trade with other nations. It is worth noting that the riches of Egypt attracted conquerors not only in antiquity. In different periods of history, the country tried to conquer the Turks, British troops, Napoleon came here, and even tank divisions of the Third Reich, the famous African Corps. Obviously, all these conquerors did not come to Egypt for excursions to the pyramids. A curious fact, the Nazis could not openly rob the pyramids because, at that time, there was a powerful English garrison on the territory of Egypt. However, a group of Germans managed to deceive the British by presenting themselves as a research expedition. However, luck turned away from these scientists. Their deception was revealed, and the whole group was taken prisoner. When they were searched, they found artifacts never seen before. Coins with images of pharaohs, mysterious gold and platinum balls. The greatest strangeness became exactly presence of coins. In fact, in ancient Egypt, there was no monetary system as such. The mystery of construction of Egyptian pyramids continues to excite minds of scientists, and to this day. In spite of the fact that some pyramids are erected with use of advanced technologies for the time, such as diamond saws, the majority of these majestic constructions are constructed of more usual materials, brick and concrete. This fact raises a number of intriguing questions for researchers, to which there are still no unambiguous answers. There are several plausible hypotheses explaining why ancient architects refused to use diamonds in the construction of most pyramids. One theory suggests that the supply of these gems may have been interrupted for political reasons. Another theory points to the high cost of diamonds, which made their use in large-scale construction economically inexpedient, especially after the tribute to this mineral had already been paid in the construction of the Pyramid of Djoser. However, the most realistic explanation is the third version, according to which the ancient Egyptians mastered the technology of production of concrete and other building mixtures. Indeed, it is much easier to make a stone block right on the top of the pyramid than to lift multi-ton blocks from below. Appearance of a hypothesis about application of concrete and cement in construction of pyramids caused a lively discussion among scientists. Supporters of this version pointed to the fact that bronze, copper, and tin tools were not suitable for sawing monolithic stone blocks, as well as to the physical impossibility of dragging such blocks to the top of the pyramid by several dozens of workers. The opponents insisted on the presence of sawing traces on the blocks, which testifies to the use of solid pieces of rock. Surprisingly, but both sides were right. Recent researches of the French expedition with application of the special equipment have shown that at least some blocks located closer to the top of the pyramid really contain concrete and cement components, while the sawed blocks are in the base of construction. Despite the convincing evidence, many Egyptologists were quick to reject the theory that concrete was used in the construction of the pyramids. Ancient Egyptian architects possessed truly impressive knowledge and skills in the field of construction, which allowed them to work not only with materials familiar to us, such as concrete and cement, but also with more exotic substances such as gypsum and alabaster. Numerous archaeological finds undeniably testify to the fact that in ancient Egypt, there were structures built of brick and concrete. Although the technology of their production and use were kept in the strictest secrecy and, unfortunately, have not reached our days. It is noteworthy that references to the use of concrete in construction can be found in the works of not only Egyptian, but also ancient Roman scientists and architects. Thus, in his book on architecture, Vitruvius, the famous Roman architect, describes in detail when and how to use this material. He was by no means the only one who touched upon this topic in his writings, which only confirms the widespread use of concrete in the ancient world. Despite the abundance of facts and evidence, the question of how exactly the Egyptian pyramids were built is still a subject of fierce debate among scientists. If one researcher puts forward a hypothesis that these grandiose structures are built of cement mixtures, there is immediately a fierce opponent ready to challenge this assertion. These discussions continue already not one decade, but the consensus between historians, Egyptologists, and scientists, relying on modern technologies and proving the use of concrete in construction of pyramids, is not reached. Probably the reason of this opposition lies in unwillingness of some Egyptologists to dispel a halo of mystery enveloping the famous ancient monuments. After all, it is much more fascinating and romantic to listen to how many centuries ago Egyptians, using mechanisms and technologies unknown to us, managed to create one of the wonders of the world, than to listen to a dry and down-to-earth lecture that they only built a pyramid out of bricks, just as modern multi-story buildings are built.